Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the Infatuasian podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Sorry this episode is coming out a little later than normal. It's been kind of one of those lazy June weeks for me. But we are here now with an episode, and it's a fun one. This is an episode with Vicki Tan. Vicki Tan is a product designer. Well, I think she calls herself a digital product designer. She's worked on some of the apps that I know you've used, whether it's Pinterest, Google, Spotify, or Lyft. Part of her designing process is to help us make decisions, whether it's to get a rideshare car, pick the music we want, or like an article that we are interested in. And so she's been helping people make decisions through digital products for many years. And so she decided to put it down in a book. And the book is called Ask This Book a Question. And it's interesting. It's different than any other book you've ever read. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure. And so you're supposed to come at this book with questions, maybe the kind of questions you might ask a good friend or even your mom. And the questions could be simple, could be things like, what kind of clothes should I wear today? Or where should I go eat lunch? To things that are a little more serious, like, should I quit my job? Should I become a content creator? Or those kind of decisions, those big ones. And so the book is kind of interesting. It walks you through stories as well as biases, different kind of biases we might have as we make decisions. And so I encourage you to take a look at it. It's really different and it's fun. It's designed by a designer, so you know there's going to be pictures, graphs, lots of room in the margins to write things down, take notes, and it's definitely a unique read and something I found really interesting. So I hope that you give it a chance. And so without further ado, let's talk to Vicki right after this. Today we are joined by Vicki Tan. Vicki Tan is a digital product designer based in San Francisco, currently a design lead at Pinterest, previously at Spotify, Headspace, Lyft, and Google. Vicki's written a book, and it's called Ask This Book a Question. It is available everywhere you get books. So hello, and welcome to the show, Vicki Tan.
Thank you so much for having me, Curtis.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Is Charlie around?
Charlie's in the other room. I would have to unhook all the little cables, but we should do that at the end.
Yeah. Charlie is a Great Pyrenees?
Yes, mostly. He's got the adopted breed ? But he looks like pretty much like a huge Great Pyrenees. So,
and if you've never seen one of them, they're about 150 pounds, shaggy like a shaggy bear.
Polar bear, exactly. He gets that a lot.
Yeah. No, he's impressive. He's impressive.
Yeah.
Are you in the Bay Area today?
Yes, I'm in San Francisco. I live on Corona Heights, so it's like if you've ever walked up to Twin Peaks, it's part way up.
Yeah, no, love that area. We were thinking about trying to do this in person, but our schedules are all such that it's just hard. I mean, but I can look out the window and kind of see where you're at if you want to wave out your window, maybe.
Yeah.
Hey, we like to greet our guests in the Asian way, and it is about lunchtime. So, Vicki, have you eaten yet?
I have eaten. I made sure to eat a little bit right before this. And then I snuck in a little chocolate-covered pretzel. So I had lunch and dessert already.
Oh, hey, all right. You know what? You're already ahead of me. I'm waiting for lunch, but we'll get there soon. Let's see. Can we talk about your roots a little bit?
Yes. You mean like where I grew up and how I came to be?
How about even before that? Yeah, ancestral roots. Where do they go back to?
Ancestral roots. Yeah, my family is from Taiwan.
Okay.
And then my grandparents immigrated there from China.
Okay.
But I feel like we identify, at least I identify with Taiwan more in that, like, that's the place we would go back to every Thanksgiving or every other Thanksgiving. I feel like I'd identify with Taiwanese food and, like, night
Uh-huh.
markets and culture.
Yeah.
I've only been to China once on a layover, so
Oh,
it's a foreign place still to me.
yeah. Taiwan's cool. I've been to both China and Taiwan. I'm not sure I could live in China.
Mm.
I'm pretty sure I could live in Taiwan. Like I feel like I could get by in Taiwan, okay, but China's it's a different beast.
Yeah, it's a little more, in your face, at least
Yeah.
for the short minute I was there.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's more mysterious. It's just harder to figure out what China is in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, but you were born here or grew up here?
I was born, yeah, on the East Coast. I was born at Yale Medical Center.
Oh, okay.
I know. We lived in Connecticut, in my early years, and then soon came over to California. So,
Uh,
yeah, that's how I got my name, actually. I was born really early, like, almost didn't make it early.
oh.
And since it was touch and go for a while and I had to live in the incubator, um, yeah, it was a victory, I guess, that I made it. So my
Ah,
full name is Victoria.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing sometimes. I had a friend and we were supposed to go to their baby
Uh-huh.
shower, but it turned out to be the baby was already born.
Ah.
They came so early they didn't even make it to the baby shower. So it's a tough couple months for your parents, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
everything worked out.
Yep, here I am.
But you've called Bay Area home for a long time now.
Yeah, and it's a place that I come back to. I mean, one, it's hard to escape California, but I do feel like I come back to the Bay Area. Like I've moved to San Diego for school and then back to the Bay Area, moved to LA for work and then back to the Bay Area.
Uh-huh.
And then I most recently moved to New York and then came right back.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about decision making, and I want to pick your brain on that, making some big moves like that. But before we get to that, so think back to 10-year-old Vicky or 12-year-old Vicky. Was there any sign or hints that you'd be A, a behavioral scientist, or B, a designer? When did those things come? Like, were you artsy as a kid? Were you thoughtful as a
Mm.
kid? What were you like as a kid?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, it's hard to say if when you grow up in an Asian immigrant family, it's hard to be not that
Hmm.
it's hard to be creative, but there are certain hobbies or things that are more emphasized, and they aren't usually like art or design. But I did grow up very in like I remember always wanting to build my own furniture, not build it, but like assemble the furniture that needed to go in my room or just um kind of boring homework assignments which were just like filling out a sheet. I remember kind of just doing something else, like cutting up the sheet or
Uh-huh.
a little more arts and craftsing it. Or
Hmm.
just like being really interested in like pens and pencils. I think every young Asian girl is, but maybe just a little bit more
Uh-huh.
creative. But it was never like fine arts creative. I was never like a accomplished painter or
Uh-huh.
someone who
Uh-huh.
was drawing at a young age. But I did read a lot.
Uh-huh.
And so despite not being I still don't think of myself as a writer, but I felt like reading for a long time was certainly helpful when the
Uh-huh.
time came to sit down and write something.
Okay. And so I think I heard you say for a hot minute you were like life science or pre-med and quickly realized that wasn't for you.
Yeah, I went to school, or I guess I went to UCSD for biology. I don't know what I thought I was gonna do with that. Maybe pre-med. My dad passed from a heart attack, and I think, at some point every like young child is like, "Well, I'll become a doctor and,
Mhm.
fix that," or something. Some very like simplistic thinking of I
Yeah.
can become a heart surgeon or something. And I was interested in biology. It's just too hard. Like I got to UCSD, I got to organic chemistry, and
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, I can't
Yeah.
understand this.
That's the one that gets kids is the
Yeah.
organic chemistry.
Yeah. I was like, what are you actually talking about?
Mhm. Mhm.
but,
Shifted to behavioral science and psychology?
yep, yep. It felt a little just more understandable,
Uh-huh.
like, it made more sense in the real world. It was something you
Yeah.
could see and observe, and for I joke that I'm like a lazy student or a lazy worker, but honestly, I am. I think I would still say so, and it was one of the only things that I was actually interested in. So studying and doing the work felt not so much like work, but just following like
Mhm.
curiosity. So,
Yeah. And I think it served you well. I mean, you're a designer now, but I think it served you well. I've heard you speak a few times on YouTube and stuff like that, and you're very thoughtful and introspective. And have you always been like that? Like when you got into psychology, was that something new for you, or were you always pretty thoughtful about feelings and what's going on inside your brain and stuff like that?
mm, I mean, I think when I was in my teens, I wasn't at all. I think I was like a angsty teen.
Join the club.
Yeah, right, and then in my 20s, I think I was a little bit more of like a footloose, "Let's go, like, let's go." I
Mhm,
was
mhm, mhm.
riding motorcycle and, like, scuba dive like, I think there's a story in the book about just, like, really chasing the thrills,
Mm.
I think it wasn't until of course, therapy, of course, like moving to LA where being a little more open and vulnerable, talking about your feelings was more normalized. Like here in the Bay Area, at least in the aughts, people weren't just like, yeah, people weren't doing that so much.
Mm.
So it was moving down to LA and like being surrounded by even more woo people that like
Uh-huh.
kind of gave me the permission to be like, okay, let me try this. And so
Yeah.
um, it kind of opened up from there. I think it definitely helped working at a meditation company where
Okay.
part of the ritual was meditating twice a day, about talking about some of those things for work. Like, what a
Mhm,
nice
mhm.
way to be introduced to it. So, I would
Yeah.
say, yeah, more in my 30s, and I'm now 40. Am I 40 or 41? Uh-oh. That was more of a recent thing.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And then, so somewhere along the line, you shifted to design, and not just any design, kind of tech,
Mm.
like more like app design and UX and UI. Where did that happen, or how did you get involved with that?
Yeah, living in the Bay Area, I don't know if you feel like this, but everyone works in tech. And like,
Yep,
I didn't
yep.
even study, I studied psychology with the behavioral science slant. And I was thinking about going back to grad school, like just studying more psychology. It was kind of a way to escape work, to just keep thinking.
Mhm.
um, And, like, I don't know, grad school, the I got into NYU, it was very expensive, it was in New York. At the time, I
Yeah,
didn't have any appetite to, like, live in a place like New York because it felt a little intimidating, like, I
yeah.
felt like I would be insignificant in such a big city. I don't know why I had that feeling at that time. And so, a friend was like, "Have you considered working at Google?" And I was like, "No, I don't know how to do that." 'Cause,
Yeah.
maybe now it's more normalized, but if you can think like in, yeah, 2010 or something,
It was
you
new,
kinda
yeah.
needed to be the PhD who like, I don't know, some super special niche thing that's who they were hiring.
Yeah.
And I kinda slid in through the back door, and I feel like that's a theme for me, but, I got kind of referred into a whatever position, like a very, like, admin or coordinator position, and they plucked me out of this pile and put me on a team looking at how we hire, how we it's sort of like a people science team, like how we
Mm,
think about hiring talent or what makes like a good team or a good manager, which is quite related, I guess, to psychology.
mm,
Um, but it was like a 3-month contract, like it was an experimental team, and I was
mhm.
working at Stanford in pediatric oncology at the time. And so I had to be like, "Hey, mom, like, I know I finally have like a decent full-time job, but like, I'm thinking of quitting to do this like weird thing at Google. I might not have a job in 3 months. What do you think?"
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And it kind of kind of snowballed from there in a good way. Like it was a good little risk that ended up getting extended into a longer opportunity. That team proved out its value. And then it ended up being like we needed a designer on the team to build that tool. I raised my hand while other people raised their hand to be like the analytics person, and someone else was like the,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, the other roles. But it was kind of a nice moment to like find your little niche on that team. And then from there, it was just like, honestly, bothering people like, hey, I heard about this thing called design. Would you show me? Would you let me? Can I try?
Uh-huh.
And it's early enough in UX design, product design as a career where people hadn't gone to school for it. So,
Yeah.
um, or if they had, it would be like cognitive science and then graphic design or like computer science and, one other thing. And so, um, again, I snuck in, snuck in through the back door, and kind of used the behavioral science slash research angle as my almost like a proof. Like, hey, I think about human behavior all day, you know, all day. I can do this in the context of design.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't think I ever heard the term UX, UI until maybe like 5 years ago. I'm sure the industry had it before that, but yeah, late aughts, early 2010s. I don't think it was a job description yet, was it? Or it was kind of
Yeah,
new,
no, I
right?
mean, back then it might have been called, yeah, interaction designer. Um, it is funny how many different names it has, like whether it be UI UX or interaction designer. Nowadays it's called product designer, but like
Okay.
I don't know, I think real product designers who design like chairs, and speakers might take offense. So I take care to say digital product designer, or sometimes I even just say an app designer if I'm
Uh-huh.
talking to a
Uh-huh.
layperson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. I guess this is a good segue too. I wanted to jump into because I think this explains your book a little bit too. But I wanted to talk about your design process, and we could talk about just in general an app, or you could talk about a specific app. But so you're working at these companies that we all know, right? Everyone knows Google, everyone knows Pinterest, everyone knows Spotify, Lyft. Can you like okay? So I've taken I did a little design thing at the D school at Stanford, just like a 2 week thing, like almost nothing. And I didn't know that there was that much thought put into things. Like honestly, I
Mm.
thought a client would just say, "I want a purple app that has 5 buttons." I didn't know that there was so much thinking involved and empathy and questions.
Yeah.
And can you walk us through maybe kind of the design process? So if I'm a big company, or you can use a real example too, but
Yeah.
what sorts of things how do we communicate what we want in a design thing?
You mean as like a person working at, say, like any consumer facing app like Pinterest, Spotify, like
Yeah,
how
yeah.
does it come to be?
What kind of thinking do we get into that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes, how does my job work? I think it starts usually, we hope it starts with a user need. And so if you think about wholesale like Pinterest or Spotify, what you're trying to do is help people find, and in the case of Pinterest, it's like inspiration. Maybe it's something to do or make or cook or wear most recently. Everyone's getting into shopping. In Spotify, it's like helping people find something to listen to, right? Like, those are like content platform problems.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of Lyft is more like helping people find a ride or like to call a car. So that's a little bit different because you're not combing through content, but you're just trying to complete a task. A little bit different. But in all of those scenarios, you would probably start with a user need, or sometimes they're called like jobs to be done. Like, what am I trying to do as like the person using your app? Am I trying to like, yeah, find something or call a car? It could get really detailed, like, you know, sometimes it's about like discovering something new versus going down a deeper interest. Like it can, every single team, and all of these companies have teams from user onboarding or user acquisition to like a core team to a growth team to an advertising and monetization team. They all have
Mm-hmm.
different goals, but for the most part, I sit on core teams and we're just trying to help you find what you need in this like huge app land. And it feels so small when you use it. You're like, why
Yeah.
are there hundreds of designers working on Spotify? Isn't it just like
Right.
rows of albums? But you would be
Yeah.
surprised, even like
Yeah.
a notification or like the metadata on like anything you're reading. We test so many versions of it, and it's yeah, it's kind of inane how detailed we go into it. But
Yeah.
sorry, back to your question. You start with a need. You try to understand what are some different ways you can meet that need. Um, some of them are product decisions. Which is to say, like, if we want to help you, like, find an outfit for, like, some event next month, some of them are product decisions around, like, we could show you, like, a shopping carousel, we could help you try things on, like, there's a lot of ways to do that, and then once you land on, like, the actual feature, there's a lot of ways to then show it. Like, say it's a try on, right? Like, do we start with one item you already have and you're pairing it? Do you want to like see it on your body or do you want to see it on other like so the design part comes in for like kind of how you well, ideally it's from the beginning to the end, but designers are
Mm-hmm.
usually digging deep on like the so UX stands for like the experience, the interaction of you with like the buttons or the visuals.
Uh-huh.
And then the UI stands for the interface, which is just literally like the lines, the
Uh-huh.
buttons, the
Uh-huh.
pixels on the screen,
Yeah.
and just moving them around, and it can make such a big difference. I mean,
Yeah.
the designer who invented infinite scroll, I mean, I think we all are like, Jesus, release me from infinite scroll.
That
But that was like a design decision. The
was a
idea, yeah, that
choice.
you
Yeah.
don't just have to keep hitting next, 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 but the lower friction exactly action of
Yeah. Wow.
there's always something more down there. It
Uh,
can like I don't want to say irreparably change our lives, but that is a lot of what I talk about as like if you've watched any of my design talks or design philosophy, I've worked in tech long enough where I can kind of see how things go. And I'm really interested in like empowering designers to make like these small, tiny little decisions or maybe like influencing from within tech companies for designing either better products or better futures for us. It
Mhm.
feels like we have so much power.
Yeah. Well, and that leads us to the book because I feel like that's kind of what you were thinking of this process for us as just normal folks trying to make daily decisions, some of them big, but some of them just maybe you might even call it mundane, what should I eat for dinner tonight and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But you kind of took it like what you do at work, this design way, and I wasn't sure how this was going to work until I saw the book and how it works. Do you want to talk about how the book came about from all your design experience?
Yeah. Should I explain how the book works first or just kind of reverse into it?
I'll leave it up to you. We could talk about how, yeah, because it is not like any other book, right, that I've ever seen. I mean, maybe the closest thing is Choose Your Own Adventure, like little kids' books,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like that, right, where you're not really supposed to read it cover to cover.
Yeah, and I found that some people do, despite like they're just completionists and they want to read it cover
Mm-hmm.
to cover. But yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
book works like a choose your own adventure, or you could say like an app, where
Mm-hmm.
the whole first part is like a question flow. And since the book is called Ask This Book a Question, the idea is you come to it with a decision you've been grappling with. And then as you move through the first few pages, it gives you like cues, or in app land we might call it like wayfinding, where it's like, okay,
Huh?
this is your question, like you have it. Um, is your question about this? If no, like you kind of keep cruising. Is your question about that? And when you
Huh?
find something that resonates with you, like, oh, actually, yeah, the question is about relationships, You take a look at that page, maybe the way in which I've drawn, like a little sketch or a doodle, helps you understand something about the nature of your question. But the main part is that for each of those pages, or for each of those topics, it points you to a page number in the book.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
it's supposed to be an intuitive table of contents. That's just something
Uh-huh.
I literally made up. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great because it has topics, like, there's literally a road sign
Yeah. Yeah.
in there, and I love that, and I know this is intentional. When you talk to a designer, everything's intentional, right? There's lots of white spaces, like, there's simple drawings with
Yeah.
lots of white spaces, and I think you even tell us, "Grab a marker, grab some Post-its, scribble, draw, whatever you wanna do." And so there's the topics. I think you had, well, about 9 or 10 topics, like work or family or money or relationships. Like, there's all these big topics,
Yeah.
and then it kind of points you to different pages. And well, how are you hearing that most people are using it? Are they literally coming with questions, or are they just kind of reading it to learn the thought process? What have you heard?
It's been a mixed bag. I mean, some people try it with a question and then they kind of use it like piecemeal like that. And yeah, some people who are trying to sit down and read it cover to cover.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Mm-hmm.
I think the beauty of it is that it works both ways.
Yeah.
But to get back to your original question, the first part is all of this like trying to help you understand your question a little bit better, or at least help you understand why it's become stuck or why you're even bringing it to the book in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Those page notations will take you somewhere in the book. Sometimes it's a story, sometimes it's a cognitive bias, like a little spread explaining it. And then all of those are like interlinking. So the cognitive biases will lead to other stories, the stories will lead to other cognitive biases.
Mm-hmm.
And then the hope is that you kind of just like weave your way through the book kind of in an organic way.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I found myself flipping back and forth. I'll get to page 197, and then I'll go back to page 43. It's kind of like a spiral, right? You're just kind of
Yeah.
going around.
Yeah. And I part of the thinking was that nonfiction books or even memoirs or even self-help books are written from chapter 1 to, however many chapters it has. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what if you don't know, what if you don't make it to chapter 10? Or what if you don't know you
Yeah.
need the information in chapter 8 or something like that? I was just kind of experimenting like we do in digital products with okay, you're in an onboarding. So if you've ever used an app that has an onboarding and they're kind of asking what are you here for?
Mm-hmm.
It's not dissimilar to that. It was just a little more challenging with a analog format because
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I just have to try to account for a finite number of questions or a finite
Yeah.
number of topics.
Right. That's very unique. And I think in your introduction you mentioned, and you just mentioned this a little while ago, how when you had a big decision in life, you asked your mom.
Uh-huh.
He said, "Mom, should I do this?" Right? And I think you said that's kind of what this book can be a little bit like. These are the questions that you would ask your mom or a good friend or someone. Is that kind of how you were thinking of this book, as being a kind of companion for you when there's no one else
Exactly.
to ask?
Yeah, and it is supposed to be for those types of questions that it's should I do this? Like that you're mulling over. And also to bring light to ones you might not be thinking of, like to your point, the mundane ones, like the question of what should I eat for lunch or what should I watch tonight or wear today is so mundane, but we do have to ask it every day. And then what's interesting about that is um, these everyday decisions actually do have quite a big impact. If you're eating junk every day, or if you're eating healthy food every
Yeah.
day, or what you wear every day over the culmination of years is your style, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I also wanted to bring attention to the other side of why we tend to overlook some of these things, which are equally as big, but in just a slower, more eventual way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's very cool. And one of the things like early in the book, there's a grid, and I'm a big fan of an XY grid. And so you have a grid where you have urgent on one side and then eventual on the other side. So
Mhm.
I think yours is left to right. So you have kind of extremely urgent all the way to the right, and then things that, yeah, we get to it when we get to it. And then on top to bottom, you have once in a lifetime. These are big decisions. Who should I marry? What job should I do? And then you have things that are every day. What am I going to eat for dinner tonight? And it's I love it when you have these kind of 4 quadrant grids, and it makes you think about. It made me think a little bit about decisions I'm making and how urgent are these things, and the scariest ones are probably the urgent and once in a lifetime. That's the upper right hand corner is the really
Yeah.
scariest ones, and then the other ones on the bottom left are a little. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly what I was trying to do. This part of the question flow was just playing around with the whole concept of timing. There could have been like other axes that I could have drawn or that you, as the reader, might think about. These are two of them. But what I really wanted to show is and you'll see like a series of these Cartesian grids, which is like, yes, the now or never ones, or even like the urgent everyday things, like things that are very pressing, like, oh, I have to like take care, like otherwise my car or something, like I need to take care of this right
Mm-hmm.
now, but it's kind of mundane. Those can, like, I wanted to call out like what were some of the pitfalls once you start to look at things through this lens, because um, if something is once in a lifetime but not urgent, like so eventual, it might be something you keep in the back of your mind for so long and you keep putting off. Or you have the time to ruminate on. And so the lack of urgency is also influencing your decision. Like a non-decision is a decision as well. So
Uh-huh.
these pages were really meant to like feel like a buildup where you're like, oh, I didn't know that an otherwise ordinary question could be made different just by introducing time or the lack of time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just learned Cartesian graph. That's what I'm describing.
Yeah, the one in particular with all the little grids on it.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, they call them Cartesian. I don't know. That's, I think, made popular by the New Yorker when they would graph like
I love them.
silly pop
Yeah.
culture things.
I love those. Yeah. I love
Yeah,
those.
that was the inspo.
Can we do a couple examples of questions?
Yeah, you mean like moving them through the book?
Well, yeah, I'll use one from your life, and you can
Okay.
talk us through it. And yeah, you could reference the book if you want, or just how it came about. So you changed jobs many
Yeah.
times.
Yes.
You wanna walk us through one of those job changes and how you came to the decision you did? Maybe referencing the book or not. It's up to you.
Yeah. I think one of them we touched on, which was just like quitting my full-time research job to take a risk joining Google for like a temporary contract.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then that happened repeatedly. Like then I became full-time at Google, which my mom was overjoyed about. Isn't that what you want? Like a full-time job at a
Yeah, yeah.
tech company, without having gone to school for that. But then, like, I was there a couple years and I was like, "Mom, I'm interested in this design thing. Like, I wanna quit my job again, um, to be a designer." And that I think that one's interesting to talk about, because I quit to join Lyft, and it was very early days where
Mm,
I don't know if it was obvious yet that, like, Lyft and Uber would become the, like, way to get around. It was
yeah.
still a little, I don't know, like, alternative. Like, it's like, "Are you really gonna get into this person's car? It's not even that clean."
Uh-huh, yeah,
It
yeah.
was sorta like, when it was I don't know if you remember, but, like, we had the pink mustaches. It was kind of, like,
Yeah.
donation-based really early on.
Oh, I never yeah.
Um, so for that, I think, that one felt, more risky because Google was an established company and I had stock options, which was the first time I had that. And Lyft was like a kind of small unknown company. And in fact, it was doing something. I would be trying to do the thing that I actually don't know how to do yet. Like I got hired
Mm.
as a designer, or I was trying to get hired as a designer, but I had never yet had a full-time design role. So I think there's like a scary aspect of like, can I even do that?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, in that, I don't know if it was because I was just so optimistic, or so eager to learn design, and to have more responsibility and remit, but, I think what always has worked for me is that I tend to focus on the upside of a quitting,
Mm-hmm.
versus what is lost, and I think for a lot of people, there's a bias called the sunk cost fallacy, which is this natural inclination that we have, or it's also like a loss aversion, but the resources that we have already invested in whatever it is, whether it's a relationship, a job, a project, I don't know, like say you're remodeling your house and it's not going well. Whatever resources we've already put into this, it makes it harder to move on from. And so in that Google example, I think, I could have felt very much like this is a safe path. I've invested a lot of time. I like gave up this other safe job. I finally made my way to like a steady sort of steady role, and I could have slowly built my way up into design there.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah, but instead I thought, you know what? I'm going to learn so much more at Lyft in a year being
Mm-hmm.
one of 3 or 4 designers, on a team versus like one of hundreds of designers at
Yeah.
Google, and the responsibility and the pace of learning and like,
Mm-hmm.
just being like a company that was creating new pattern of interacting. Like nobody
Yeah.
had booked a car in that way before, like set your destination in an app or even tried to find like a car offline from in your yeah, like it's a whole offline online experience.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And for me, it was really just like not letting the like what ifs of what I was losing or what possibly could go wrong and sort of emphasizing the potential of what could go right.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it
Huh.
was sort of just kind of kept doing that every couple of years.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
story in the book called Good at Quitting.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Huh. So everyone out there, if you're thinking about changing jobs, grab a copy of this book and run through the paces of it. I was going to give you an example. So just this week, I got into a little spat with my 13-year-old daughter, as teenagers and parents do. And so I flipped. I immediately what caught my eye is how to become a better parent is one of the questions that you asked in there, and it led me somewhere I didn't think you would lead me.
Mm.
It led me to an idea of recency. I think what did you call it? It's not recency bias, but you called it recency.
Recency bias. That sounds right.
Yeah, it's basically that, right?
Yeah.
Where you f- maybe are dwelling on the thing that just happened and not the bigger picture or so. And I didn't think of that in terms of parenting, but it kind of helped me. It really helped me think about overall, am I a bad dad because of this one argument versus, hey, it's been 13 years with this kid, we
Yeah.
have a little bit of a
I
history
love
and yeah,
that.
I thought
Where did you think it would lead you?
I wasn't sure where it would lead me. I was thinking more, yeah, I don't know. Actually, I didn't know where it would lead me, but I didn't expect that. And
Yeah,
so I thought
yeah.
that was cool.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? The matching process of the book. So like there's probably 100 citations of either during the topics, the categories, the timing, or those individual questions. At some point, I had to do a wacky mapping of like where do all
Yeah.
these go? And
Uh-huh.
I could have listed a lot of places. I don't know if for that question, at least I listed a couple, but it was, that was a decision-making exercise in and of itself.
Mhm.
But what you'll find is like it's totally arbitrary. Like you could flip open to a completely different one, and hopefully it would also be valuable.
Yeah.
I tried to make the connection that made sense to me, but yeah, you know, the lesson in that is, like, you could have flipped open to a hindsight bias or, like, anything, like a change
Yeah.
blindness and been like, "Wow, maybe."
Yeah. Yeah. So it just gives you a different way of thinking about it, maybe, or maybe something that you had just hadn't thought of. So it's pretty useful for that.
What was the argument about? Or
Oh, chores and
yeah,
when to get chores done, and how she was had to do this. Okay, so she had to empty the dishwasher, right? Like a big thing in our house is, we got to get the dishes flowing otherwise. And she was backing everything up, right? If the dishwasher's not empty, then we can't empty the sink. If the
yeah,
sink's not empty, we can't wash the pot.
yeah,
So it was this chain reaction thing. So I overreacted, and she would have gotten to it eventually, I'm sure. But yeah, and then it was kind of like, why do I have to ask you 3 times?
yeah,
And it's like, I was going to get to it, that kind of parent kid thing.
yeah.
And so it just, it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. So I was just thinking out, like how I could have done things differently, or,
Mm,
so it was good
yeah.
to think about.
Well, I'm glad yeah, I see that I've listed it here as recency effect, but yes.
Recency effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of them are around timing or, like, expanding our, just expanding, like, our awareness of, like, you know, in the moment, you're there and you're, like, focused in on, like,
All
what if he
right.
doesn't get it?
Yeah.
And, like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of them are just about, like, not even letting go, but, like, expanding just, like, your consciousness of, like, what is this in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me shift gears a little bit. I think overall, like the bigger picture, I was wondering if you had any advice for classic overthinkers versus classic underthinkers.
Oh. Yeah, do you categorize yourself as an overthinker or an underthinker?
I'm probably more of an underthinker. Yeah, I'm more of a go with my gut.
Yeah.
This is a feel right.
Yeah.
Versus my wife is probably a classic overthinker, where she'll make out lists and think about all the possible combinations that could happen, good or bad, and
Yeah.
then make a decision.
Amazing. Okay, great. Because the book was trying to bridge those two ends of the spectrum, although I call it, like, more of an intuitive, sort of feelsy decision
Okay,
maker,
just
and
leave it
then,
at
like,
that.
a structured analytical decision maker, which it sounds like you and your wife might fall along those different spectrums.
Yeah,
The only
yeah.
advice I would give is that, like, you both are probably overlooking each other's approaches, and what the book is
Uh,
trying to do is bring those two together in that, like,
okay.
the stories are quite intuitive, and I've tried to show where you can introduce structure or rigor by introducing the biases in them. And
Mhm.
then conversely, biases are kind of structured, or they are a more analytical, list-based way to make decisions. But then in that, I've tried to expand them so that they are more intuitive. And so the only advice is, like, if you find that you're a loose decision maker, think about, like, yeah, where you can add a bit more structure, and then vice versa for your
Okay.
wife. Yeah.
All right, we gotta do a little a group session on the couch.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
next big decision.
It would be fun.
All right. All right. Well, Vicky, you survived our difficult questions. We have this new segment. It used to call it the lightning round, but
Oh.
I found out that I talk too much to make it a lightning round. So we call it now Your Asian Opinion. So it's a yow. So let's see. Designer, I'm going to ask you a design question first.
Ooh.
What is, in your humble opinion, what is the best designed app or product that you use pretty regularly?
Oh, I mean, I don't think I don't know. I think we're at a weird inflection point where a lot of products aren't designed well,
Oh,
especially on this, like, we're on the verge of, like, this AI breakthrough. It's like, ugh, is
mhm,
everything's a chat. Everything is chatting
mhm.
with the thing. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, I think physical products are designed very well. I think OXO, in terms of, like, building
yeah,
physical things, is
those are great.
really great. But apps, I don't know. I'm waiting for somebody to make something much more intuitive. You know what's happened is, like, a lot a lot of the good design happened, like, back when these patterns were still new, and I feel like we've fallen
Uh,
into, like, a space of everyone's just copying each other for these patterns, so
mm,
I'm excited about how AI will cause us to have to shake up, like, a new interaction pattern, a new wave of design. I just don't think it's happened yet, so
okay,
no
fair
no
enough.
answer.
That is fair. All right. So if you were talking to my students and they had a little inkling to go into UX or UI,
Yay.
would you tell them to go to design school, or would you tell them to maybe go a different path, like psychology or behavioral science?
Ooh, that's interesting. See, if we were following the survivorship bias, no, just kidding. But you
Go
know,
with the money.
you're right. I think it depends on what kind of learner they are, you know? Like I
Okay.
would follow what is interesting to you. If you're excited about like a structured design school education, and you feel like you could thrive in that environment, great. And you have the money, do it. But
Yeah.
if, like, sitting down and kind of actually don't I didn't go to design school, so I say, like, but, like,
In
what
theory.
yeah, like, if you're more interested in, like, doing something else, like, I think you should do that. So I don't think there's a right answer, but, like,
Uh-huh.
I do think it's hard to, like, fit yourself into some mold of what, like,
Yeah.
the right path is, um, because it just will be a little less fruitful, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because it's yeah, you're trying the whole time.
Yeah. Okay. Another fair answer. A fair non-answer.
I know, here I am in the gray area.
That's fine. All right. Last question. What should I have for dinner tonight?
Ah! I always say something that you can have for leftovers the next
Perfect.
day.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
Yeah. That's the best. And I am very food motivated. So that question is more deep than you think, like I think about mouthfeel, I
Yeah,
think about calories, of course, I think about nutrition, I think about taste, I think about can I cook this
yeah.
versus do I have to go out? Yeah, so it's more complex than other people might think about
It is
it.
complex, and one thing that's interesting, is, like, are you asking yourself this night by night or as you go buy groceries, or are you
Mhm.
thinking
Mhm.
about this the bigger time scale we can make some of these decisions that are every day, the 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 science is that we'll make better decisions when
Yeah.
it's called like choice bracketing. So if you
Okay.
can meal plan your whole week, you'll probably do a better job of variety as well as, health or like
Mhm.
um building in umami
Uh-huh.
rather
Yeah.
than if you're deciding night by night. So
Love it. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I totally agree. All right, and our final question is our signature question where we ask our guests who their infatuation is. So, Vicki Tan, who is your infatuation?
wow, it sounds so
I know.
I've been dreaming of this person.
I should have a drum roll.
I was thinking, as I was writing this book, I spent a lot of time, it's sort of maybe unintuitively, I was trying not to read self help or, stuff in this category. And the thing that I read naturally is a lot of sci fi. And so my
Okay.
infatuation is Ken Liu. I don't know if you've read any of his stuff. He's sort of like a lesser known Ted Chiang. Not
Uh-huh,
to
uh-huh.
insult Ken Liu, but not as
Uh-huh.
many people know him.
Yeah.
Um, he wrote like the paper Menagerie. It's just like a lot of short stories that have
Mm.
like this Asian through line. I just think he's an incredible storyteller,
Uh,
and he does a really good job, as I think Ted Chiang does, but weaving science in a light way, but in sort of like a provocative way to help you think more about humanity. And just like,
uh-huh.
it's another way of getting people to look at their behavior by like kind of looking into like the near future with maybe some sort of interesting aspect of science or technology. Plus, he also adds like a layer of usually like his heritage or like something to do with our culture. So I love it.
All right. Yeah, yeah, great. We have a friend of the program, Mike Chen. He's a local guy, and he writes science fiction as well. Have you ever heard of him?
No, what's his book or what's his story
Take
called?
his well, I like Quantum Love Story. That was a fun one, and he has a lot of time travel kind of stuff, and it's a light read. It's not super deep, but he's Bay Area. He always mentions San Francisco. He mentions UC Davis in every book because that's his that's his school that he went to. So check out Mike Chen, writer. He's great.
Yeah, thank you for that. I will definitely check it out.
Sure, and thank you for coming on the podcast with us. What's coming up for you? Got anything new other than just talking about the book a little more?
I'm going to London and Edinburgh for a little design conference, where I will try to slang some books, but
Yeah.
mostly talk about how we should be designing. I have this new talk about how we should be designing in space time. So using this concept of, I don't know how much of quantum physics you know.
Ugh,
I don't know that much.
not much, yeah.
Yeah, but just this idea that if we can kind of think about time as ever present versus like a one-dimensional sort of moving forward dimension, how that might change how we think about design.
All right. Yeah. Very cool. Nice. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for our episode, everyone. If you want to follow more Vicki, you can follow her at Vicki Hart on Instagram, or you can check out her website, vickytan.com.
That's it.
The spelling of Vicki was fortuitous, where you're probably the only Vicki with an I-tan, yeah?
Yeah. It's a decision I made when I was, I don't know, 8. Or whenever we start writing our name, I chose. I was
Yeah.
more symmetrical.
That worked for you, yeah. And you can get a copy. I'll give the full title here. You can get a copy of Ask This Book a Question, an interactive journey to find wisdom in life's big and little decisions. You can get this book wherever you get books. Thank you so much for coming on with us today, Vicki.
Thank you, Curtis. It was so fun to talk.
It was a great chat, yeah. So all the best on this book and all the best in life.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening out there. I really appreciate you tuning in and joining us for these talks. I hope you find them interesting. I always learn something whenever we interview someone, so I hope that you're learning things too. So I think that just about does it for us. So on behalf of Vicki and myself, we hope that you're all happy, healthy, and safe out there. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everyone.